Don't let them take us.
You're safe with me. No one will take you again.
On a winter night, Grant Ellison, your quiet neighbor who works too late, unlocks his SUV in an echoing garage and freezes. A 7-year-old sits inside, shivering under a red scarf, clutching a tin soldier and a brass compass. He eats only after Grant tastes first. A name slips from the boy, Elliot, and the word pickup. Who put him here, and why does the compass feel like it points to Grant? The garage breathed cold beneath the city. Grant Ellison arrived later than he meant to, tie still knotted, phone buzzing with messages he wasn't ready to answer. He unlocked his SUV, the lights pulsing once, and froze. Salt traced white lines along the floor. His breath hung like smoke. Tall and broad-shouldered in a custom navy suit, crisp white shirt and a red tie, he filled the doorway but kept his voice gentle. A child was inside, small in the back seat, knees drawn beneath a red scarf. The boy's cheeks were splotched with cold, his lips pale, his eyes too wide, too watchful. In his hands, he gripped a tin soldier and a brass compass as if they were the last two solid things left in the world. Grant's mind tried to make sense before his heart allowed it. He checked the doorframe for damage, the glass for cracks. Nothing. The car had stayed locked. The alarm hadn't tripped. Yet the boy was there, trembling, leaving tiny fog prints on the window with each quick breath. "Hey," Grant said softly, careful not to startle. "I'm Grant. I work upstairs. You're safe with me." The boy stared at the compass, jaw tight. Grant opened the rear door slowly. The air bit his face. "May I sit?" He waited. A nod, barely. Grant slid onto the edge of the seat, broad shoulders turned to make room. Up close, the boy's trembling was steady, a metronome of fear. The compass needle shook, then settled, then shook again. "What's your name?" Grant asked, low and even. "Theo," the boy said, a whisper wrapped in frost. "Hi, Theo." Grant offered a small smile. "That's a good compass? Old one?" Theo shrugged. After a beat, he said, "It points somewhere." Questions crowded, and Grant pressed them back. "Who brought you here? How did you get in? Where are your parents?" The garage felt too quiet. He looked toward the cameras, toward the elevator doors. "My jacket is warm," he said gently. "Can I put it around you?" He didn't reach yet. He waited again. Theo lifted the tin soldier, then set it on his knee. "It's cold," he admitted. Grant loosened the knot at his throat with the 2 fingers. He had deep blue eyes, side-swept dark hair streaked with gray. None of that mattered here. Here, he was just a man trying to be the right kind of adult. "Hands first," he said. "We'll warm your fingers, then your shoulders." Theo's eyes flicked to his face, searching for impatience that wasn't there. Slowly, he let the compass rest atop the red scarf. He extended his small hands. They were colder than the air. Grant wrapped the jacket forward like a blanket, tucking it at Theo's sides, careful of the soldier, careful of the compass. He moved at Theo's pace. When the fabric settled, Theo exhaled, a shaky ribbon of breath, and the trembling eased a fraction. "Better?" Grant asked. Theo gave the smallest nod. A distant door banged, then the echo curled and died. Grant listened to the building he owned, to the fact that a child had been placed in his car as if it were a locker. "We're going to stand up. Nice and slow," he said. "I'll help you. If you don't like something, say so and we stop." Theo reached for the tin soldier with one hand, the compass with the other. The needle trembled, then steadied as if it had chosen a direction. He looked at Grant finally, truly, and in the boy's eyes Grant saw a familiar kind of stubborn, survival dressed as silence. "Okay," Theo said. Grant slid an arm beneath the jacket, feeling the fragile geometry of ribs and a heartbeat he could almost count. He lifted, steady and deliberate. Snow breathed in from the open door. The elevator bell chimed. Grant tightened his hold. "We're going up," he said quietly. You're not alone. The elevator doors parted, and the city seemed to hold its breath with them. The elevator hummed as it carried them up. Grant held Theo close, jacket wrapped snug around him. The boy's small hands clutched the tin soldier and compass like lifelines. When the doors opened to the penthouse, warm air greeted them. Soft lights, the faint smell of cedar from the fireplace logs stacked neatly by the hearth. Grant set Theo gently on the sofa. "You're safe here. No one's going to hurt you." Theo's eyes darted around the high windows, the polished floors, the quiet hum of city traffic far below. He looked too small for the room, too small for the silence. Grant crouched down, lowering his broad frame so his eyes were level with the boy's. "Hungry?" Theo didn't answer. His lips pressed together, his gaze fixed on the compass trembling slightly in his palm. Grant rose, loosening his tie, and walked to the kitchen. He returned with a plate of toast and a glass of milk. He set them down on the coffee table, then sat back, not too close. "Eat, if you like." "No rush?" Theo leaned forward, then froze. His voice was a whisper. "You first." Grant blinked, then understood. The boy had been taught not to trust. He picked up a piece of toast, took a deliberate bite, and placed it back on the plate. He sipped the milk, calm and steady. "See? Just bread and milk." Only then did Theo reach for the food. His hands shook less once he started eating, small bites chewed carefully. Relief flickered across his face, though the guardedness never left. Grant leaned against the arm of the sofa, watching him without pressing. "Theo, do you know how you got into my car?" Theo swallowed hard. His voice came faint, almost broken. "Special pickup." Grant's chest tightened. He kept his voice low. "What does that mean?" The boy shook his head, scarf slipping a little. "A van. Nighttime. They said, Director Dane." He trailed off, shoulders curling inward. Grant's jaw hardened. Elliot Dane. Harbor Gate Youth Services. He knew the name, faintly, through community boards and charitable pitches that had crossed his desk. He hadn't trusted the man's smile then. He trusted it less now. Grant reached for the remote on the table, hit a button. "Marcus," he said into the intercom. "Yes, Mr. Ellison?" Security chief, voice sharp and awake, even at this hour. "Freeze every camera in the garage and elevators. Tonight, 2200 to now. Lock the footage on a private server. No access but mine." "Yes, sir. Done." Theo looked at him, eyes wider. "They'll come back." Grant leaned forward, his voice even but steel beneath it. "Not while you're here. Do you believe me?" Theo studied him, the compass needle shaking in his hand. Finally, he nodded once. Grant exhaled slowly, steadying himself. He had lost a son once, years ago, to illness that no money could buy back. Tonight, a boy had been left in his car like cargo. His instincts whispered this was no accident. He adjusted the red tie at his throat, not loosening it now but tightening it, a small, silent vow. "Then we'll start with this," Grant said, reaching for the compass. He tapped the brass lightly. "You keep this close, and tomorrow we'll find out what it's really pointing to." Theo's small fingers tightened around the tin soldier, then the compass. For the first time he allowed himself a breath that wasn't trembling. The fire flickered in the hearth. The city lights stretched across the glass. And between them sat a boy and a man. Two strangers bound by a night that had just begun to change both of their lives. The night passed in uneasy fragments. Theo slept in the guest room, the jacket still wrapped around him, tin, soldier, and compass clutched close. Grant sat at the kitchen counter, untouched coffee cooling beside him, eyes fixed on the frozen footage now stored securely. Every instinct told him this wasn't random. Someone had placed the boy. Someone wanted him gone again. At dawn, the penthouse intercom buzzed. "2 men at the front," Marcus reported. "Say they're here for a pickup. They have paperwork." Grant's shoulders stiffened. He stood, adjusted the red tie at his throat, and moved to the door. When it opened, 2 strangers in gray coats waited. One held a folder, the other a clipboard. Their eyes didn't meet his. They flicked past him, scanning the interior. "Mr. Ellison," the first said briskly. "We're here to collect the boy. Standard transfer, orders signed." Grant extended his hand. "Let me see." The paper was sloppy. Stamps faint, letterhead blurred, signatures rushed. Grant turned it over, noting the courier address scrawled in a font he recognized as generic template. "This isn't a court order," he said evenly. "It's valid," the man insisted. "Best if you comply quickly." Behind them, the elevator chimed, its doors threatening to open again. Grant's jaw set. He reached past the doorframe, pressed a panel on the wall. The elevators locked with a mechanical thud. His voice dropped, calm, but edged with steel. "Listen carefully. While you're here, no one takes him. Not without proper authority." The man with the clipboard shifted uneasily. "You're interfering with placement. That could be a liability." Grant stepped forward, his broad shoulders filling the doorway. "You've walked into my home with forged papers. That's the liability. Now leave." The two exchanged a glance. For a moment, the taller one looked as if he might argue, but something in Grant's eyes, blue and unwavering, stopped him. They turned, muttered, and left. The sound of their footsteps clipped against the hall. Grant shut the door firmly. His hand hovered over the lock an extra second before turning back inside. Theo stood down the hallway, scarf draped across his small shoulders, watching. His compass gleamed faintly in the morning light. "They tried," Theo whispered. Grant nodded once. "They won't succeed." The boy hesitated, then stepped closer. "People don't usually stop them." Grant crouched again, steady and deliberate. "Then maybe they've never knocked on the wrong door." Theo's gaze flicked down to the tin soldier in his hand. His fingers tightened. Slowly, he nodded. Grant rose, walking to the window. Below, the city stretched awake, traffic lights blinking, horns faint in the cold air. But inside, something had shifted. Trust, fragile but real, had been earned not by promises, but by action. His phone buzzed. Marcus's voice came through. "We've logged their faces. Plate's departure route. Want me to follow?" "No," Grant said quietly. "Not yet. We'll need more than shadows. We need proof." He looked back at Theo, standing small but unbroken in the hallway. Proof, he thought, was exactly what they'd find. The day had only begun, and already the battle lines were clear. By mid-morning, the knock came again. Firm, measured, not the rushed tap of pretenders. Grant checked the feed first. A woman stood at the door, dark hair pulled back, leather folder tucked beneath her arm. Badge visible, not flaunted. He opened. "Detective Alana Ruiz." She introduced herself, voice calm but sharp at the edges. "I'm following up on a report of a forged custody order delivered here this morning." Grant stepped aside. "Come in." She entered, gaze sweeping across the polished floor, the tall windows, the silence broken only by faint city hum. Theo peeked from behind the hallway, scarf wrapped, compass clutched. Ruiz crouched a little, softening. "You must be Theo," she said gently. "I'm here to make sure no one pretends they can take you again." Theo's grip on the compass tightened. "They always have papers." Ruiz held out the folder. Inside were copies of real placement documents. She slid the forged one beside them. "See this stamp?" she pointed. "The ink's wrong. The seal's wrong. The courier company doesn't even exist. They faked it." Grant folded his arms. Strong jaw set. "What's the play here?" "Harborgate Youth Services," Ruiz replied. "Director Elliot Dane's name keeps floating. There's a network, shell couriers, rushed transfers, paperwork that collapses on close look. We're building a case, but it's delicate. We need logs, access records, anything your building caught." Grant nodded. "Already preserved." He pulled a tablet from the counter, sliding it across. "Garage cams, elevator logs, entry scans. No one erases this." Ruiz flipped through, her eyes narrowing. "Good. That's more than most families can do." Theo stepped closer. My compass. He hesitated, then whispered, "It's the last true thing." Ruiz looked at him steady. "Then guard it, Theo. No matter what else they try to hand you, you keep the thing that doesn't lie." Grant glanced at the compass, brass dulled, but needle unwavering. He recognized the weight symbols carried, sometimes more than evidence itself. Ruiz rose. "Mr. Ellison, we'll open an official case file today, but understand this, Dane's good at spin. He paints missing children as clerical mistakes. We need clean chains of proof. No leaks, no loose ends." Grant adjusted his tie, eyes cool. "Then you'll have them, whatever it takes." Ruiz studied him for a moment, measuring. She saw the broad-shouldered man in a tailored suit, but more, the way he stood slightly between the boy and the door, as if he'd already chosen sides. "All right," she said. "Then let's get to work." Theo looked from her to Grant, then down at the soldier in his palm. Slowly, his shoulders eased. For the first time since the garage, he believed maybe this wasn't just another van waiting outside. The penthouse grew quiet again after Ruiz left, but the air had changed. Proof was coming, threads were tying together. Grant leaned against the window, staring out at the city that thrived on its own lies, and promised himself this: no matter how deep Dane's roots ran, they would be torn out. Theo's voice broke the silence. "You'll stay, right?" Grant turned, eyes softening. "While you're here, no one takes you." The boy nodded, fingers curled around compass and soldier. The words planted something fragile but real between them. The next morning, Grant stood in the conference room of Ellison Group's top floor, the skyline a sheet of winter glass behind him. His analysts gathered around, laptops open, their faces tense as numbers scrolled across screens. "Map every grant that's touched Harborgate in the last 5 years," Grant ordered. His voice carried that calm authority, the tone that turned decisions into action. "Every dollar, every timestamp. Follow the money until it stops moving." On the main screen, lines began to appear, grants funneling through programs with names polished to sound pure. Bright Steps, Initiative, Helping Hands, Tomorrow's Path. But when his lead analyst, Claire, zoomed in, one path repeated too neatly. "Bright Steps," she said, tapping the screen. "This one's not real. It's a shell. Funds go in, then jump into a private foundation, Elliot Dane's personal foundation." Grant's jaw tightened. "Dates?" She clicked again. "Each transfer matches a reported disappearance within 48 hours. Children marked as expedited placements." The room went silent. The kind of silence that comes when truth lands too heavy to ignore. Grant spoke low. "So it's not negligence, it's commerce." Claire nodded grimly. "We need warrants, or the trail won't hold in court. Too many encrypted reroutes." Grant's phone buzzed. Detective Ruiz's name lit the screen. He answered. Her voice was clipped, direct. "I'm hearing the same. Dane's foundation is dirty, but I can't move without proper warrants. You've got copies?" Grant glanced at Claire, who gave a small nod. "Encrypted. Clean chain of custody." "Good," Ruiz said. "Preserve them. Don't share them with anyone else. Leaks kill cases like this." Grant ended the call, then turned to his team. "Lock down everything you've found. Triple encrypt. External drives sealed. Nothing leaves this building until Ruiz calls it." The analysts nodded, already working. When the room cleared, Grant stood alone, staring at the lines that tied children's names to bank codes. He loosened his red tie, fingers dragging down the silk. His reflection in the glass stared back at him, eyes sharp but heavy. Behind him, footsteps padded softly. Theo, still in the red scarf, the compass swinging gently from his hand. He looked at the big screen, then up at Grant. "They make it look like a game," Theo whispered. Grant crouched beside him, voice steady. "It's not a game, and it ends here." Theo touched the compass, then pressed it against Grant's palm just for a moment. "So you don't lose your way." The boy pulled back. eyes too old for his 7 years, and carried the tin soldier back to the couch. Grant rose, watching him go. Somewhere deep inside, he felt a line had been crossed, not of numbers or files, but of promises. He had lost before, but not this time. He straightened, retied the red silk at his collar, and called Marcus. "I want eyes on Harbor Gate's loading docks. Quiet, constant. If anything moves, I want to know before Dane does." Marcus didn't hesitate. "Consider it done." Outside, the city buzzed on, blind to the fight unraveling beneath it. But inside, one man and one boy stood against the weight of an empire, and the first cracks were showing. That evening, Detective Ruiz called. Her tone was taut, clipped. "Anonymous tip came through. Pick up tonight. Same signature as before. Location's an alley off 9th. Grant stood by the penthouse window. The city spread beneath him like a restless map. "Could be a trap. Or a chance to expose their courier chain," Ruiz countered. "We're staging units. I want your security team on standby, eyes only, no interference unless it breaks bad." Grant agreed. Minutes later, he was in a dark sedan with Marcus at the wheel, Theo safe back at the penthouse under 2 trusted guards. The compass Theo had slipped into Grant's pocket weighed heavier than any tie bar or cufflink. The alley was dim, trash bins shadowed against brick. Snow from the morning had turned to slush, icy and slick. Ruiz crouched near a squad van, bulletproof vest beneath her coat, radio clipped at her collar. "Target vehicle is a white van," she murmured, pointing. "Courier expected within 10 minutes. Child delivery in exchange for cash." Grant's jaw flexed. "And the child?" She shook her head. "Unknown." Then headlights cut across the mouth of the alley. The van rolled in, tires splashing slush. 2 men stepped out. One dragged a small figure forward, wrapped in a red scarf so like Theo's it made Grant's chest seize. The boy stumbled, pushed toward the van. Ruiz raised her hand, signaling her team to hold until the exchange was clear. The second man opened a duffel, flashing stacks of bills. The courier shoved the boy forward. Ruiz's voice cracked sharp into the radio. "Now!" Sirens chirped, lights flared, officers surged from shadows. The alley exploded into motion. Shouts. The van doors slamming. Men scrambling. One courier dropped a black tech bag as he bolted. Grant strode forward, broad frame cutting through the chaos. Ruiz caught the courier herself, pressing him against the van, cuffs snapping tight. Her officers secured the others. She bent to the boy, pulling off the scarf. He wasn't Theo. Another child, smaller, eyes glazed with fear. "You're safe now," Ruiz whispered, wrapping her coat around him. Grant's gaze fixed on the dropped tech bag. He crouched, opening it with steady hands. Inside, burner phones, SIM cards, lists scrawled with dates and names. Enough to demand warrants, enough to prove structure. Ruiz knelt beside him. Her eyes met his. "This is it. Cause for search warrants. Dane can't spin his way past this." Grant exhaled slowly, tightening the red tie at his throat like armor. "Then let's bring his house down." Behind them, the child clung to Ruiz's sleeve. Officers logged evidence, bagged phones, photographed every face. For once, the alley felt less like a hunting ground and more like a turning point. Grant looked at the compass in his pocket, its needle trembling again. Theo's words echoed in his mind. It points somewhere. Somewhere was here, at the heart of a system that had treated children like cargo. Tonight, the path had begun to split, and Grant knew he wasn't walking it alone. 2 days later, the warrants came through. Ruiz arrived at Harbor Gate with a team, their steps echoing through sterile hallways. Grant came too, not as CEO this time, but as a guardian with skin in the game. The server room was colder than the January air outside. Rows of machines hummed, lights blinking in steady rhythm, as if nothing ugly could hide inside. But Ruiz's forensics team moved quickly, imaging drives, copying encrypted folders. One monitor flickered open, directories buried 3 levels deep. Ruiz's brow furrowed. Photos, side door videos, cash handoffs. Her voice lowered. And spreadsheets, columns labeled expedite codes. Grant leaned closer, his broad shoulders casting shadow across the screen. Numbers matched names, codes matched vanished children. Each entry neat, deliberate, not negligence, not accident, commerce. Ruiz exhaled, shaking her head. They were selling speed, blue ribbon codes for same-day delivery. Grant's red tie loosened, fingers dragging across the silk like a man steadying himself. His eyes, deep, unflinching, locked on the evidence. This isn't a system breaking, it's a system built to break children. The forensics officer nodded grimly. Chain of custody established. Every file backed up. They can't bury this. Grant's phone buzzed. Marcus on the line. Sir, Dane's lawyers are already sniffing. Media's been tipped. It's being spun as clerical confusion. Grant's jaw tightened. Then the spin ends here. He looked around the sterile room. Wires snaked across the floor, servers stacked like coffins holding digital ghosts. And yet, in the middle of it, he felt the compass pressing against his pocket, warm with borrowed trust. Ruiz touched his arm briefly. You don't have to carry this. You're not law enforcement. Grant met her gaze. No, but I've buried a son. And I'm not burying another child's future if I can stop it. Her eyes softened, then sharpened again as she turned back to the screens. Then let's make sure every single file sees daylight. Outside, snow flurried against the windows. Inside, truth finally stood visible, cold and undeniable. Harbor Gate was no haven. It was a market. Grant straightened, broad frame rigid, and retied his red silk like a battle standard. From here on, he said quietly, we fight in the open. The machines hummed, the drives filled, and somewhere far above the city a boy waited, holding a tin soldier by his bed, believing in a man who refused to lose his way. 2 days later, the knock on Grant's penthouse door wasn't a threat, but it wasn't comfort either. A woman in a gray coat, clipboard tucked under her arm, introduced herself firmly. Maya Benton, Child Protective Services. Her gaze swept the room, professional but not unkind. We've received reports of irregular custody circumstances. We need to determine placement for Theo. Theo, curled on the sofa with the scarf around his shoulders, froze. His hand clutched the tin soldier so tightly the paint cracked. The compass dangled against his chest, trembling with his breath. Grant stepped forward, his voice calm but edged. He's safe here. You've seen the news. Dane's network is under investigation. I won't hand him back into a system he was stolen from. Maya didn't flinch. Mr. Ellison, the law requires oversight, but I've read Ruiz's report. Removing Theo right now is too dangerous. My order is this. Supervised placement, in-home only. Daily checks, cameras installed, no overnight visits off-site. You sign, you comply, or he goes into foster care until court decides. Theo's small voice broke through. Please, not another place. Not again. Maya looked at him, then back at Grant. Her tone softened. We do this right, by the book, but with heart. You want to protect him? This is how. Grant took the clipboard. The pages looked sterile, but each line carried weight. He signed without hesitation. I'll comply with every check, every camera, every rule, but hear me clearly. He will not be processed. He will be protected. Maya nodded, tucking the forms away. Then we'll hold you to your word. I'll see you tomorrow. When she left, the silence returned, heavier. Grant walked to Theo, crouched down, and touched the compass lightly. Still pointing true? Theo nodded faintly. It stayed steady. That night, Grant unfolded a small cot beside Theo's bed. He tucked the boy in, set the soldier and compass on the nightstand where they could stand guard. Then he lay down on the cot, broad frame too large for its narrow edges, but he didn't care. Theo stirred in the dark. "Why are you on the floor?" Grant's voice came low, steady. "Because you shouldn't have to fall asleep wondering if someone will be there when you wake up." The boy's breathing slowed, softened, steady. The compass needle gleamed faintly in the dim light, like a star refusing to vanish. For the first time, Grant didn't feel like a man filling silence with promises. He felt like a guardian who meant every word. The city outside pulsed with its usual noise, but inside the penthouse a boy and a man finally slept under the same roof, watched by a compass, a soldier, and the fragile hope of trust becoming something more permanent. The penthouse transformed into something it had never been, a war room. The long dining table was cleared of crystal bowls and silver trays, replaced by stacks of binders, drives sealed in evidence bags, and neat rows of coffee cups. Screens along the wall displayed maps, courier routes, timestamps, and fund transfers highlighted in red. Grant stood at the head of the table, red tie knotted tight, his broad shoulders squared. Across from him, Jordan Pike, Ellison Group's general counsel, adjusted his glasses and tapped a binder. "We'll build this like a case study. Chain of custody, exhibits, testimony sequencing. The goal is to keep Theo's identity sealed while dismantling Dane's operation in plain sight." Detective Ruiz paced nearby. Voice clipped but clear. "We've got forged orders, courier routes, fund flows. And this?" She held up a phone. "A statement from a former aide. He confirms the keyword blue ribbon meant same-day delivery. That code links directly to children moved under false pretenses." Pike nodded grimly. "With the video statement, we can prove intent, not just negligence. That's the line between sloppy paperwork and trafficking." Grant exhaled, steady but heavy. "Then we make it undeniable. Every file, every ledger, every courier face logged in court." He turned to Ruiz. "You'll testify?" She met his gaze. "Every word." Theo appeared at the edge of the room. Scarf loose, compass swinging faintly from his hand. He lingered, small in the glow of screens. Grant stepped aside, crouching so their eyes met. "This is big," Grant said softly. "And it's for you, for every kid they thought no one would fight for." Theo looked at the compass, then pressed it briefly against Grant's palm. "So, you don't forget which way to go." Pike cleared his throat, eyes flicking toward them but softening. "Mr. Ellison, we'll need you to testify as well. Your refusal to release Theo without a court order, your calm promise, it establishes intent to protect, not obstruct." Grant nodded slowly. "I'll say it in front of anyone. While he's here, no one takes him." The room grew quiet. Evidence stacked neatly, arguments prepared. Outside, snow pressed against the glass, the city muffled. Inside, the lines of a battle were drawn, not with soldiers but with files, testimony, and the courage to speak. Grant straightened, retightened his red silk tie as if it were a blade unsheathed. "Tomorrow," he said, voice firm, "we stop pretending this is confusion. Tomorrow, we show the truth." Theo's eyes lingered on him, steady and sure, and for the first time the boy's whisper carried not fear, but faith. "You'll win." Grant let the words settle, feeling their weight. In a world where nothing had been steady, a child believed in him. That belief was now his compass, and he would not let it falter. The courthouse doors groaned against the wind as Grant stepped inside. The marble lobby buzzed with voices, reporters pressing microphones forward, cameras flashing. Headlines had already turned Dane's case into spectacle. Youth director blames paperwork, errors. Grant walked tall, navy suit, crisp, red tie, nodded with deliberate precision. Beside him, Jordan Pike carried binders heavy with evidence. Detective Ruiz strode just behind, steady eyes scanning the chaos. Inside the courtroom, the heat blasted too high, making the air close. Grant glanced toward the benches. Theo wasn't present. Maya Benton had ruled the boy would stay home, protected. Still, Grant felt the weight of the compass in his pocket, needle resting, a reminder of the boy's trust. The judge entered, robes sweeping. "All rise." As they sat, Dane's lawyer stood immediately, voice slick. "Your Honor, this entire ordeal is built on a clerical misunderstanding. Director Dane has dedicated years to child welfare. Any discrepancies are paperwork confusion, nothing more." Pike rose slowly. "Your Honor, we move to seal the identity of the minor involved, and we submit digital evidence secured under warrant that shows far more than paperwork confusion." The judge nodded. "Motion granted. Evidence admitted." Ruiz took the stand. Her testimony was calm, precise. She walked the court through courier records, timestamps, the forged orders Grant had refused. Each word built a chain, link by link. Impossible to snap. The defense tried to cut in. "Detective, isn't it true paperwork is often rushed?" Ruiz's gaze was steady. "Yes, but paperwork doesn't create courier companies that don't exist. Paperwork doesn't funnel funds into private accounts, and paperwork doesn't stamp fake seals on custody orders." Murmurs stirred in the gallery. Then Pike stepped forward, lifting a small sealed bag. Inside, the brass compass gleamed faintly. He spoke gently. "This compass was carried by the child before Harborgate touched him. It proves continuity of identity, a life, a story, before these so-called transfers, not paperwork, a child." The judge leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Logged as a personal effect." His gavel tapped. "Entered into record." Grant's chest eased just slightly. The compass had been more than a relic. It was now proof, an anchor. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras whispered clicks. Dane sat stiff, his practiced smile faltering at the edges. As court recessed for the day, Grant stepped into the cold again. Snow swirled down, the city humming beyond the courthouse steps. Pike clapped his shoulder. "We cracked their defense today. Tomorrow, we break it." Grant nodded, eyes fixed forward. "For Theo. For every name on those spreadsheets." The compass pressed steady in his pocket, and for the first time since that night in the garage, Grant felt it wasn't just pointing somewhere, it was pointing home. The courtroom was tense the next morning, winter light spilling across the tall windows. Reporters packed the gallery, their pens ready, cameras poised. Dane walked in with his lawyer, still wearing the polished smile of a man convinced charm could rewrite truth. Judge Simmons adjusted his glasses. "Mr. Pike, you may proceed." Jordan Pike stood, his voice calm but carrying. "Your Honor, the defense claims this is confusion. But the evidence will show intent, deliberate transactions, deliberate concealment, and deliberate trafficking." He clicked a remote. The lights dimmed. A projector whirred, casting shaky video onto the screen at the front. The footage showed Dane in a suit, ushering a couple through a side door at Harborgate. His hand pressed to their backs, guiding them like honored guests. Moments later, a suitcase snapped open, bundles of cash stacked inside. Then, faint but unmistakable, a child sobbed off camera. The gallery gasped, the sound sharp as a slap. Dane's lawyer shot to his feet. "Objection! Context!" The judge's gavel struck. "Overruled. Continue." On screen, timestamps appeared, overlaid with ledger entries and blue ribbon expedite codes. Each match clean, precise. Ruiz stepped forward, narrating steady. "This sequence correlates with the disappearance logged 2 years ago. The funds routed through Bright Steps Initiative. The code marked expedited placement, and Director Dane himself present for the exchange." Dane's face drained. The smile faltered, then cracked, leaving only tight jaw and darting eyes. The gallery buzzed with whispers. One reporter muttered, "Not paperwork, purchase." Grant sat at the bench, broad frame steady, blue eyes locked on the screen. He felt the compass in his pocket, its weight like a heartbeat. Theo's words echoed in him, "So you don't get lost." The tape ended, the projector light fading. Silence filled the room, thicker than any argument. Judge Simmons leaned forward, voice low but ringing. "Director Dane, do you care to explain why cash exchanges and coded ledgers are paired with missing children?" For the first time, Dane had no ready smile, no smooth deflection. His mouth opened, then closed. His hands tightened on the table. The court had seen enough. Grant's jaw clenched, but inside, a quiet resolve replaced years of grief. The compass needle had pointed him here, to this moment where truth could no longer hide. The courtroom was silent except for the scratching of pens. Judge Simmons's voice carried like iron through the chamber. "The evidence presented leaves no doubt. Fraud, falsified records, human trafficking. Director Elliot Dane is guilty on all counts." The gavel struck once. The sound echoed. Final. Reporters bolted for the doors. The gallery erupted. Some gasps, some cheers, some stunned silence. Dane sat slack in his chair, his once perfect posture crumbling as marshals closed in. The practiced smile was gone, replaced by something hollow. Pike leaned close to Grant. Assets frozen. His foundation shuttered by morning. Every shell, every account, locked. Grant exhaled, broad shoulders easing slightly, though the weight didn't leave. His hand drifted to his pocket where the compass rested. The boy's trust was heavier than victory. Ruiz approached, her face calm but lined with exhaustion. "We've stopped him. But custody for Theo, it's still pending. CPS wants a full hearing before placement." Grant nodded, jaw tight. "We'll face it." Hours later, back at the penthouse, Theo sat curled on the sofa, tin soldier perched on the armrest. When Grant entered, the boy looked up, eyes searching. "It's over?" Grant crouched, lowering to eye level. "The man who hurt kids. He won't hurt anyone else. Not ever again." Theo reached into his scarf, pulled out the compass and pressed it firmly into Grant's palm. "So, you don't get lost." Grant closed his hand around it, throat tightening. "I won't. Not now." For the first time, Theo leaned forward, resting his forehead against Grant's chest, small and fragile but steady. Outside, snow swirled across the city. Inside, one promise quietly changed owners. The courtroom this time was smaller, quieter. No cameras, no headlines, only the muted shuffle of papers and the hushed voices of those who understood what was at stake. Grant sat at the table beside Jordan Pike, suit pressed, red tie straight, the brass compass tucked into his inner pocket like a promise. Theo sat nearby with Maya Benton from CPS, scarf draped across his shoulders, the tin soldier standing guard on the desk in front of him. He looked small in the high-backed chair, but his eyes were steady. Judge Harmon entered, gray-haired and deliberate. "This is a custody hearing for minor child Theodore James. Counsel, proceed." Pike rose first, voice even. "Your Honor, Mr. Ellison has complied with every stipulation. Daily check-ins, supervised visits, in-home cameras. He has retained trauma specialists, enrolled Theo in a school prepared for transitional students, and demonstrated stable capacity to provide a safe environment. We present Exhibits A through G in support." He slid binders across the table. Testimony letters, therapist confirmations, security footage logs. Maya Benton stood next. "From CPS's perspective, removing Theo at this stage would be dangerous. He has formed attachment, trust, and stability. Uprooting him now risks re-traumatization." The judge nodded, eyes thoughtful. "Detective Ruiz?" Ruiz stepped forward. "Your Honor, I investigated Harborgate. I testified against Dane. If not for Mr. Ellison's refusal to surrender Theo to false papers, this child would have been trafficked like so many others. His actions show intent to protect, not obstruct." Finally, Grant stood. his deep blue eyes fixed on the judge, but his voice softened when he spoke. "I lost a son once. Illness took him, and no amount of money or power could stop it. I can't change that past. But I can choose not to fail another child now. Theo is not a file to be processed. He is a boy who deserves a home." The judge's gaze shifted to Theo. "Theo, do you want to say anything?" The boy lifted the tin soldier, then set it carefully beside the compass Pike had placed on the table as evidence. He looked up, voice clear though quiet. "He came back for me." The room stilled. Even the hum of the overhead lights seemed to fade. Judge Harmon cleared his throat, eyes softer now. "We will render a decision tomorrow. Court is adjourned." As benches creaked and papers shuffled, Theo reached for Grant's hand. The compass lay between their palms, its needle steady, pointing north. No verdict yet, but the direction was clear. The courtroom was hushed the next morning. Snow fell outside in lazy spirals, muffling the city beyond the tall windows. Judge Harmon adjusted his glasses, eyes steady on the file before him. "This court has weighed the testimony, reviewed the exhibits, and considered the child's best interest," he said. "Permanent adoption is granted to Mr. Grant Ellison, with CPS follow-ups and ongoing counseling." The gavel struck, solid and final. Grant exhaled, shoulders loosening. His hand instinctively reached for the compass in his pocket. Across the room, Theo's face lit with something rare and radiant, a smile that wasn't guarded. Maya Benton approached, voice gentle. "You've got follow-ups, but you've also got a family now. Keep your word, Mr. Ellison." Grant's voice was quiet but firm. "I will." That evening, the penthouse sounded different. The clink of silverware at dinner, the rustle of homework papers across the table, laughter echoing down the hall. No longer silence, no longer just space, life filling corners once empty. On the mantel, the compass and tin soldier stood side by side. Above them, a new addition, a drawing Theo had made, two figures under a star. Crayon, lines bold, letters crooked but certain. One word written beneath, home. Grant stood behind Theo, hand resting on his small shoulder. He felt the compass steady in his pocket, but he no longer needed to check it. He had found his direction, and for the first time since loss had carved a hollow in him. Grant Ellison was not just a man in a red tie, not just a CEO in a glass tower. He was a father. The city outside carried on with its noise, but inside the penthouse the sound that mattered most was the one he thought he'd never hear again: family. The compass had always pointed north. Tonight, it pointed home.